I'm so excited to have a conversation today because today's message has, I think, incredible potential to change the reputation of the church, to change the way maybe someone close to you, maybe someone you care about, views the church. So I'm ready to get going. This message means a lot to me, and it got me thinking. When I was younger, I developed a reputation, okay? This was a reputation that I wasn't very proud of, nor is it a reputation that you would probably like to have true about yourself. And so here's what I was known for when I was younger. Whenever I would play a game or play sports, especially when I was younger, I was a sore loser, okay? So when I was way young, tears, the whole thing. If I was losing a board game, I would start to yell at the person I'm playing with or whatever. I just didn't like losing. I was a sore loser. Perhaps you know someone or you are like that as well, and maybe you're still like that, and that's okay, So having that reputation, though, it impacted some things. You know what it impacted? People didn't want to play games with me because it was going to end poorly in some respects. And so the reputation that I produced, it influenced other people. Now, later in life, thankfully, I feel like I've developed a reputation that is better, that I'm more proud of, and it went like this. I was sitting in a meeting with my lead pastor, who was my boss at the time, and we were talking about plans and some different things, and he said, in the middle of the conversation, he said, "You know what, Tim? I never have to worry about you." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" "I never have to worry if you're going to be prepared. I never have to worry if you're going to be organized. I'm not going to have to worry about that. In fact, I don't even need to know what you're about to tell me because I just know you're going to do it and it's going to be fine." And I was just like, it was one of the coolest things someone ever said to me because I just knew that the person that was over me had this high view of me, and because of that, it earned me some things. What did it earn me? He gave me special projects. He extended more and more trust to me as a leader. And then not only that, because he viewed me that way, that was the reputation I had earned with him, it trickled into other teammates and other parts of the churches that we were involved with. And it was just very special to me that was the kind of reputation that I had. It also had an impact. So what is a reputation? A reputation is this: the beliefs or opinions that are generally held about someone or something. A widespread belief that someone or something has a particular habit or characteristic. So in other words, people have observed a characteristic or a behavior or a tendency. They've experienced it. It's been documented, and now it becomes associated with that thing or with that person. Every single person, every family, every business, every restaurant, every firm, every church has a reputation. And let me just say this: every reputation is earned. Every single reputation is earned. Now, doesn't mean it's fair. It just means it's earned. When someone has a view of something, it just means that someone gave them that view or that experience. Every single reputation is earned through someone's experience, with that restaurant or with that business or with that Christian. And think about it. Over time, a reputation is built because of a couple of things. One of those things is the contribution that it provides for you. If it does something for you, if it helps you, it kind of goes up in your view. Also, you tend to buy from places that are consistently providing you with the experience that you're looking for. So like for me, I'm a big Amazon person. I don't know how you feel about Amazon, but Amazon consistently puts things on my doorstep in 2 days or less, so I keep buying. They have a good reputation with me. And isn't this true? A reputation takes more time to build and way less time to ruin. Doesn't it? And like I said, it's not always fair when a reputation is lost, because sometimes all it takes is one person that works for that company that makes you not a customer anymore, right? It's all it takes. Sometimes all it takes is one word, one bad encounter, one experience with someone that's associated with that thing to ruin your view of that. And it's true. All it takes is one encounter. So, what is the reputation of Christianity? The church, the globe, the big C church. When someone hears church, whether they're churched or unchurched, maybe you're here, you're not particularly a Christian, maybe you're considering that, but when you hear church, what immediately begins to come to your mind? What is the reputation of the church? Now, a very popular answer to this question that I've heard over and over, and have even thought of myself as I've thought about this question, is hypocrites. So many times, maybe 1 out of every 2 times, just guessing, you ask, what's the reputation of the church? You're going to get some kind of answer like that. People that say they believe one thing, but do another thing. That is a reputation. That is a reputation that the church and Christians have. Another reputation that the church and Christians have is legalistic. What does that mean? That means that there is a person, a Christian, who believes that there's nothing they can do to earn salvation and favor from God, but you need to do this and this and this and this to earn salvation and favor from God. And if you don't, you're not part of our group. That's legalism. And that's a reputation that a lot of Christians have. Some people view Christians as being overtly political, where somehow Christianity has become a political party. And to be a Christian also means you have to be affiliated with some kind of ideology that is apart from the Scriptures. And so some people view Christians as sort of it's ammunition for a political party to get their bills passed and their agendas through the roof. Some people think of Christians and they think of, well, there's some non-loving people. They don't love everyone the way they are. They're actually anti-progressive. They're falling behind with the way we should love people and accept people. And some people have the view that Christianity is a very pro-men movement, where let's make sure we have the correct gender pecking order here. And some of these perceptions exist. They're mainstream. Now let me just say this. These are not the mainstream reputation of Christianity with everyone. Most of you probably don't necessarily view the church this way, but let me just say this. The people that you wish knew Jesus, and the people that we're here for, and the people that need to hear about Jesus, this is the predominant way they view the church. And so it matters. It matters. We have a whole generation of people who are not signing up for Christianity because their experience with a Christian has been different than who Jesus is, and based upon what they know about Jesus, how that should correlate with the behavior of a Christian. And this is a big problem. Because when people have a bad taste or a bad view of the church or Christians, what happens? They're blocked from seeing and tasting and experiencing Jesus, the only one who can truly fulfill their deepest needs. When there's a bad taste in their mouth about the church, it can potentially get in the way of somebody discovering the only one that can provide them with hope and meaning and identity. And James, the brother of Jesus, he comments about how important it is to have a good reputation and what's contributing to a hurting reputation for Jesus followers. In James chapter 1, verse 26 and 27, here's what he says. Those who consider themselves religious, that's us. Religious means practicing a faith of some sort, right? Those who consider themselves religious, and if you're considering becoming religious, putting your faith in Jesus, hey, do me a favor and listen to everything James says and don't make the same mistakes that I've made, that we've made, and that James is about to tell us. Those who consider themselves religious and yet do not keep a tight rein on their tongues deceive themselves, and their religion is worthless. Religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this, and we should all be taking notes now if we want to know what pure Christianity should look like. To look after orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. Honesty moment for all of us in this room. We haven't done that. We haven't always done that. We haven't always, with our words and with our deeds and with what's most important to us, we haven't always practiced this. And because of that, someone's view of Christianity has been impacted. We haven't always, with our words, been good. We haven't always, with our actions, done right. We've actually at times let the world and its desires and what it chases actually get into us and become our desires and pollute us and change us and twist us. But listen to me. Each generation and every location of Christians has the potential, you have the potential, we have the potential to change the narrative. We have the potential to contribute in our time, in our location, compelling evidence that Jesus is God and the best way to live is following him. We have an opportunity through our words and our actions and what we really care about and how we treat people and how we walk our faith, not just talk our faith. We have an opportunity. Or, as John Dickinson quotes in his book, Saints and Sinners, which gives an honest look at the history of Christianity, good and bad, he says, or Christians can accumulate counter evidence. Words and actions that make people conclude, well, Christianity is actually a part of the problem, so we need to get rid of it. We have an opportunity in front of us. The reputation of Jesus is in, very literally, our mouths and our hands. What are we going to do? Are we going to preserve it? The story of Jesus for this generation and the next? Or are we going to pollute the reputation of Jesus by how we live and how we follow and how we portray ourselves and how we engage in, online quorums and how we have water cooler conversations and the things we actually hold in our heart? Like, are we going to preserve who Jesus is, what the church should be for this generation in our location, or are we going to pollute it? Is there any way, honestly, to repair or to rebuild a damaged reputation, specifically a potentially damaged reputation of the church in the eyes of other people because of the corruption or the inadequacies or the inaccuracies that people have seen? Now, I think there are three realistic steps that could rebuild the reputation of the church and of Christianity, and ultimately what we're hoping, Jesus. The first one is to recover. We need to recover the reputation that Jesus envisioned. Jesus has something in mind with what he wants to come in the mind of someone who comes across you and me, a follower of Jesus. He has a reputation that he wishes that we would be known for, that we would be reputable for, that we would be recognized by. And he shares this vision in the Sermon on the Mount. Towards the beginning, He paints a picture of the identity he dreams his followers will look like. Matthew chapter 5, verse 13 through 16 says this. You, that's us, are the salt of the earth. But if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden, and neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. You are to be salt and light. Now, it's not shocking that when the church isn't salt, it gets trampled on. And I don't know if I blame anybody. Because when salt's not salt, it's not worth anything. It's not useful for anything. See, in Jesus' mind, an encounter with a Christian, when somebody has an encounter with you, it should be the best tasting experience with another human being based upon their words and their actions that they could possibly have. This person knows Jesus, this person has been transformed by Jesus, and now that I'm with them, an extension of Jesus is being seen and tasted by me. It should be that way. Every community should think, even if they don't agree with the doctrines of Christianity, they should think Christians, they make the world better. They make this community better. If they disappeared, oh my goodness. That should be the view, because salt is also a preservation tool. It keeps things good. And so when our community around us looks in at us, they should see us, you and me, as an integral part of holding all of society together. Now, you and I, just like a light on a lampstand, will be on display. See, we can't hide. We can't just put it under a bowl, you know. Your words, your actions, your attitudes, my words, my actions, my attitudes, it will be on display. It's not a choice. When we say, I'm going to follow Jesus, we're getting up on a lampstand so everybody can look at us and test us and see if we really are who we say we are and if they should buy into what we buy into. Now, Matthew 5:16 finishes, and here's what it says. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds. So, for what? So they can look at how awesome you are? No, it's so they can glorify your Father in heaven. See, what happens is, when we lose a salty reputation, it impacts the way that someone sees their heavenly Father. And this should mean the world to us, that our actions and our attitudes and our words could impact someone else's eternity. Every time you hit tweet could just impact the way someone views Christ because you're a Christian and they know it. Every time, you say your opinion in a conversation at work or whatever, it might impact whoever hears you, what they think about Jesus. That should be enough to make us go, oh my goodness, we need to have a tight rein on our tongues. We need to be careful before we speak, You see, it's almost impossible to rebuild a reputation when somebody loses it. And you know this out of personal experience. There's people that you felt the same way about for years and years and years and years and years. How hard it is to rebuild a reputation about someone, but we can. If we recover what Jesus envisions, to be salt and light, and if we get it right, if we become the kinds of Christians who are salt and light, here's what can happen. People might just be able to taste and see Jesus. They might be able to come into relationship with the author of life, the one who can transform their troubles, the one who can provide a way through the wilderness, the one who can restore their soul, the one who can console them when they're grieving, the only one who has the hope of the world, we have an opportunity to allow people to see and connect with Jesus. How do we do that? By being salt and light. How can we be salt and light? Well, that's the second step. The second realistic step to rebuild the reputation of the church. Remember the convictions and the contributions that built Christianity. We need to remember. We need to remember why this movement swept the world. We need to remember why it got into our hearts, why we signed up for it. There were some really good reasons that continue to be good reasons, and we need to remember them. See, the major contributions of Christianity in all of human history have always flowed from two basic convictions. Two things that we believe these so strongly that they impact how we live. What are those convictions? All people have equal value. That's what Christians believe. Did you know that the only reason we say things like that is because Christians believed that and it caught on? Never before in all of the world did anybody say anything like all people have equal value until Christians. Every single person is made in the image of God. Every single person that you and I come into contact with has equal value. And Christians have always believed this. And because they've believed this, it has led to the second conviction. Because they are made in God's image and because God values them equally to me, we love all people. Every good thing that you have come to Christ for, and over the years, every contribution to history that the church has made has been because of these two basic ideas. We love all people, regardless of their gender, regardless of their race, their religion, their political affiliation, their opinion, their situation, their age, their economic status. We love all people. Why? Because they were created in the image of God and they deserve our love. If Jesus was willing to get on the cross and die for them, then I need to love them. You know? Does that sound familiar, by the way? See, these two foundational ideas have essentially been borrowed from Christianity and now are the founding ideas of our democracy. Everyone has equal value, and we should love everyone, right? We should help others. We should fight for marginalized people. We should treat the ill. We should help the poor. We should value women. We should protect life. We should believe that race or age or ability doesn't determine worth. Where did those ideas come from? Jesus of Nazareth and his early followers who adopted them and changed the entire world. Remember the contributions. And listen to this. This is just amazing. The world's first hospitals, Christians built them. The first to value all of life, whether they're inside or outside the womb, who did that? Christians. The first to say all women are equal in value to men. Who said that? Jesus. Every anti-slavery movement throughout the history, whether it's the 2nd, 5th, 7th, or 18th centuries, has been heavily populated by Christians. In Australia, the top 50 charities by revenue, out of those 50, 39 are Christian. And the 11 that didn't make the cut used to be Christian. 58% of services to homeless in the United States are filtered and funneled through faith-based programs. Religious Americans adopt 2.5 times more than someone who isn't religious. 73% of charitable giving in the U.S. goes to faith-based or church-based nonprofits. People who go to church regularly versus people who are not affiliated with going to church regularly. Listen, the generosity comparison is staggering. The average churchgoer gives on a yearly basis $2,935. The average non-churchgoer gives $704. Any bad reputation that Christians have earned have been based on inconsistencies with our conduct and our words as it relates to the two core convictions that all people have value, and because all people have value, we are going to love them tangibly, with our mouths, with our hands, with our attitudes. Finally, in order to rebuild and recover the reputation, it's going to require us to reimagine how to make a new contribution here and now. Because there are people that are still hung up, they still haven't seen it, and we need to rebuild it. Now, Jesus had a growing and a gravitating reputation. Jesus is still popular with people because he was consistent. But let me share with you what John and Mark record about one story in the life of Jesus that they witnessed about why Jesus had this amazing reputation. John chapter 6, verse 2 and 3, and I'm also going to be bouncing back from Mark chapter 6 as well because they tell the same story just from different vantage points. A great crowd of people followed him, speaking about Jesus, because, so he had a reputation, right? Because they saw the signs he had performed by healing the sick. Then Jesus went up on the mountainside and sat down with his disciples. Switching over to Mark, he saw a great crowd and he had compassion on them because they were like sheep without a shepherd. And he began to teach them many things. Jesus always did three things. He was known for these three things. And as he calls his disciples to him, as we're about to find out, he wants his disciples, his followers, to do these three things. You can't be a follower of Jesus without following Jesus. And so here's the three things that Jesus always did that built his reputation. He saw people. He saw them. He saw their condition. He saw their desperation. He saw their past. He saw their history. He saw that it's reasonable in his eyes to see that they're struggling because when he looked at every human being, he saw the same story. Somebody struggling and fighting to get it right and getting it wrong every time. And so he saw people. Every person that came to him. He saw their value. He saw their worth. He saw their pain and brokenness. And you know what he did? He cared about their problems. Whatever the problem was, whether they were dealing with sickness, maybe they needed some encouragement, maybe they needed some kind of spiritual truth. He saw their problems and he cared about them. And then he helped them. He helped them with his words and with his deeds. And this is why you follow Jesus, right? Because he looks at you, despite what you've done, and he says, I'm going to help you. Even though you don't deserve my hand out to pull you up, I love you because you have value. You're made in my image. This is why Jesus is so attractive, because he wants to solve your deepest problems, and not just yours, everyone's. Because he loves all people. Now watch how this scene unfolds. We have a lot to learn here. As I said, Jesus is discipling his followers. Following Mark in chapter 6, verse 35, he says, and when it grew late, so Jesus is teaching and healing and helping people with his disciples came to him and said, this is a desolate place, and the hour is now late. Send them away to go into the surrounding countryside and villages and buy themselves something to eat. So basically, it's been a long day. They've been helping people all day, and his disciples see that they can no longer help them with this need. And so basically they say to Jesus, hey, Jesus, we're spent. This is a really desolate situation. Let's send them somewhere else to get their needs met. And then John records how Jesus replies to specific disciples. I love this. John chapter 6, verse 5 and following says, he said to Philip, where shall we buy bread for these people to eat? He asked this only to test him, for he already had in mind what he was going to do. Philip answered him, it would take more than half a year's wage to buy enough bread for each one to have a bite, for each person here to get a taste. And so Jesus basically looks at Philip and the rest of his disciples and he says, how are you going to help solve this problem? Not send them somewhere else. What are you going to do right now to solve this problem? And so Philip is a glass half empty kind of guy. He basically says, this is such a huge task. We don't have enough resources. We can't make a difference. Maybe you feel that way. Maybe you feel like the damage done to the reputation of Christianity is just too big. It's too divisive. It's gone too crazy. Social media blows it up even more. And you think, well, the world is just too desolate now to do anything about this problem. Another one of his disciples, John 6, 8, and 9, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, spoke up. Hey, here's a boy with 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fish. So he's a little bit more opportunistic than Philip was, but he's still a realist, right? But how far will they go among so many? I found a boy with his lunch. It's something, but can it really do anything to take care of this problem? Will this contribution really matter? It's so small and the need is so big. Will my contribution of being salt and light actually make a difference in somebody else's life? Listen to how this story finishes. Verse 10 through 14 in John 6. Jesus said, have the people sit down. There was plenty of grass in that place, and they sat down. About 5,000 men were there. Jesus then took the loaves, gave thanks, and distributed to those who were seated as much as they wanted. He did the same with the fish. When they all had enough to eat, he said to his disciples, gather the pieces that are left over, let nothing be wasted. So they gathered them and filled 12 baskets with the pieces of the 5 barley loaves left over by those who had eaten. After the people saw the sign Jesus performed, they began to say, pay attention to this, surely this is the prophet who has come into the world. People were able to taste and see Jesus. And it doesn't happen if this boy doesn't show up with his lunch and Andrew doesn't notice this small little opportunity that maybe Jesus can multiply. See, there's a community seated around us, and it may look desolate. It may look like we can't rebuild this reputation. It might, for you, more personally look like a classroom or a workplace or a team you're involved in or a nonprofit or somewhere in the city. Let me just say this. Everyone that comes across us, what do they need? They need to see salt and light. Why? So they can taste and see Jesus. This is how we're going to rebuild the reputation of Jesus, by being salt and light. What is being salt and light? Making small, consistent, collective contributions of salt and light that flow from core convictions. And if we do this, if we bring what we have to offer, even if it's small, even if it's just a couple of pieces of bread, even if it's just in your circle, Jesus can take that and he can multiply it and he can distribute it and he can turn a situation upside down so people can taste and see him. But it starts with us bringing our 5 loaves and 2 fish. And it's important. We're not bringing these 5 loaves and 2 fish for us. It's for the crowd out there. It's not so we can make this place better. It's so we can make out there better. so we can take the gospel that we've put our life in, that we've built our life on, and we could take it to the ends of the earth. Maybe it just means taking it to our schools and our workplaces and down the street. So what are your 5 loaves and 2 fish that you can bring? It's harder to rebuild a reputation than it is to ruin one. And all of us, through our words, our actions, our behaviors, have the potential to preserve or pollute the reputation of Jesus. We might not be able to change the world's perception, but we might be able to change our local community's perception with consistent contributions of salt and light. So how are we going to do this together? What's our here and now contribution? A few months back, a team of people went to several nonprofits in our community and global nonprofits, missions that we support, and we asked, hey, you are the people that support people, you're the people that feed people, you're the people who clothe people, you're the people who look after orphans and widows. What do you need? Like, what are your needs right now? Like, how can we give to you so that you can do amazing things? And so a few responses that came back were, we support a church planting organization in Ghana, and they have a church that meets under some trees, and they would like to have a shelter to meet under. They don't have one. A 50 by 30 shelter is $7,000. The Foster Closet that serves Franklin County would love to have money to help offset their operating expenses. Loving Hearts, the food pantry in our community, has a garage door that's broken. This is food that comes in and food that goes out to feed our community. I mean, places like Hope Ranch that just got fired up, they could use technology and different assets to be able to create environments for youth to be reconciled and to make a way in this life. And so we asked them, hey, what can we give to you? And they shared with us. We also asked them, how can we serve you? How can our church serve you? What are ways we can get involved? And they responded with multiple ways, multiple places, multiple times where you, your family, a couple of you as friends, maybe part of your life group, can go and serve these places. And this is what I want us to do. I want us to be salt and light. What is our goal? 100% participation. Everyone in this room that says they're a Jesus follower, you need to sign up because it's what you signed up for. 100% participation. Everyone in this room to choose to be salt and light in a strategic way by the end of the year. And how we're going to do that is by giving and by serving. Today, in just a few moments, we are going to take up an offering. It's going to be different. We don't normally take up offerings. We have boxes in the back for you to make your contributions to the church or online. We're going to take up an offering, and 100% of what you give today, we're giving 100% of it away to help fund these needs in our local community and abroad. So what is your contribution? How much will you give so we can give it all away? Where will you serve? Now, I've developed a reputation. You know, I can show you something right here. I've developed a reputation. Maybe you know this about me, but I like to buy tools, you know? This is a PVC pipe cutter. Do you know how many times I use this? One time. That's right. One time. That's better than this right here, which is an extremely long drill bit that I was going to hang some floating shelves with. Started to do it and realized that was a bad way to do it and did it a different way, which led to me buying more cabinets and ringing up another $140 to the bill. This cost me $15. This cost me $25, and it sits in my garage. How much should you give? I don't know. What did you just waste money on? What if you could take that money that you would just buy on a whim, and we could fund a shelter for a church in Africa? What if you just said, you know what? I'm going to give, if everyone in this room that's here today on campus, if we all gave $25, you know how much money we'd raise? $16,000. And for some of you, that's not even enough. Like, you should probably give more. So I'm asking a one-time gift, not so the church can benefit, but so that we can go and meet the needs and be the salt and light of our community. Your giving and serving will help others taste and see Jesus. How do I know this? Because a couple of years ago, I met a woman and her 2 daughters. They attended my church. How did they get to my church at that time? A group of people went to a local domestic violence shelter to throw a party, make a meal, clean a kitchen, and began to rub relationships with the families who were there. And along the way, this woman who attended our church began to develop a connection with a woman who was there finding refuge. And she eventually said, "You should come to church with us." And do you know what? She was there the very next time. And she kept coming, and she kept coming. Her 2 daughters, who were teenagers, began to get plugged into our student ministry. They even all started to serve. And the next year, when we started an initiative to serve the community, do you know who was a part of the team that was planning service projects? The mother, who got her life turned around, all because a Christian stepped into her space, showed unconditional love, and their stories changed. And we have the opportunity to be those kinds of people. And so you're challenged from here on out for the rest of this year to give. If you need to give online, we'll put a link up on the screen. You got a handout on your way in. If you want to put some money or check in the buckets, we would love to give that money away. And if you're interested in serving, the very same link will take you to a serve portal. You click serve. You can go find ways you and your family, your group can get involved. Listen, imagine if we each made a small, consistent, and collective contribution at the end of this year. How might other people taste and see Jesus? So, we are going to have a little bit of fun with this giving moment, okay? Because giving should be fun. God loves a cheerful giver. And so what I want to do is I want you to have fun with it, you know? I want you to have joy as you're putting money or a check, or you're making a donation online. We're going to give you a few minutes. We're going to have a little bit of music going on, and I just want you to smile. I want you to feel so good about putting that money in there, because you know it's going to help someone outside of this place. Let me say a prayer for us. God, thank you so much for an opportunity to come together as a church and talk about the reputation of the church. We want to change that, God. We want to humble ourselves. We want to practice what we preach. We want to care about the needs out there. And right now, we're going to give. We're going to give in this offering. And God, we pray that you would take these funds and you would use them to help the needs outside of this place so that people could see you. And I ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen.